Hello, everyone. This is a re-release of my interview with George Klauba. I would have to say that this is probably my favorite Eager to Know episode of all of the interviews that I did. George is an artist and a former tattoo artist who grew up in Chicago, and I just love this conversation. I think it is so interesting. The other thing that I would encourage listeners to do is to listen to two other interviews that I did. Listen to William Conger, because William Conger is the same age as George, and he grew up in Chicago as well and was an artist, but his upbringing was completely different, which you will be able to hear from my interview with William Conger. The other interview I would encourage you to listen to and compare to George is my interview with Chad Keplinger, who is also a tattoo artist. And it sounds like what he was looking for in what tattoo solved for him is similar to George, but they are of completely different generations. So I think it's really interesting. So please enjoy my conversation with George Klauba. And again, I would encourage you to listen and compare the conversations and interviews that I did with William Conger and Chad Keplinger. All right, guys, enjoy. George Klauba is a Chicago-based fine artist born in 1938 on the city's southwest side. His artwork is highly influenced by tattoos. Tattoos, he says, are strongly part of him and strongly part in him. The subject matter of his paintings includes maritime themes, Native American themes, and of course, tattoos. I am very grateful that George sat with me. I am a huge fan of his artwork. It is really amazing. You need to check it out. I am pleased to present my conversation with George Klauba.
You know, when you're tattooing somebody, you're really close to somebody. Really close. I mean, I don't mean just physically. I mean inches away, but you're holding their skin. You know, their blood is dripping out on your hand as you're tattooing. We didn't have gloves then. We didn't wear. This was in the 70s and early 80s. You know, and the person is breathing on you, or you're very close. And a lot of times you pick up vibes inside of the person. You're picking up the mind of the person. You know, and it gets a little shaky and spooky. And a lot of times you don't want to get close to these two people, but you are close tattooing. So a lot with my imagery and my artwork, people look at it and say, look at these crazy paintings you're doing, these really weird looking people. Well, this is how I'm exploring visually what I felt about a client or somebody, coming through.
Yeah.
And
when you were experiencing that tattoo situation where you're giving someone a tattoo and you're in this intimacy, physical intimacy, the breathing, the blood, I'm assuming that you had never had that kind of connection with another person, a stranger, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And this is sort of a hard thing to deal with, I think. And through the years, not too many years, it bothered me enough where I just got out of tattooing. I don't think I was strong enough there to just let this stuff bypass me. I kept absorbing it, and I think it really took a toll on me after a while mentally.
It sounds like it was not positive energy that you were mostly receiving.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
The people that are getting tattoos now is everybody. Back in the 70s, it wasn't everybody. It sounds like it was a subset of people. What was it? Can you tell me about the people that were getting tattoos in the 70s?
Well, again, it goes back to the 50s and 40s and 30s beyond, where tattooing was more of a ritual with different groups. It wasn't so much of today where people want to identify with a butterfly or have their name or on their arm or something. Sailors got tattooed. Gangster, gangs got tattooed.
Can we take a sailor for, why would a sailor get a tattoo back then?
Yeah, sailors, again, it's an old tradition, an old Navy tradition in a way, but it's a lot dealing with that you're in a group, like a clan in a way, a family. You belong here, and your identification is also what you wear on your skin. What you wear on your skin is what you believe inside of you, what your beliefs are and feelings, but you're wearing for the world outside to see your representation of you through their skin, to see what you are, where you came from.
Do you think that tattoos used to be a way for people to show that they belong to a group, as opposed to now it's about individuality?
I think it was basically a group type of thing, instead of individuality. Some of the clientele would be gang members coming in. And, a guy just sits down in a chair, and he takes off his shirt, and you could just feel this guy is dead. You could just feel it. He's not going to live long. I mean, you could almost feel like he's exuding this. I mean, he's got bullet wounds on him. He's got knife scars on him. He's got old tattoos of skulls and daggers and, gang symbols and everything. And you just know this guy is not going to last forever, bad, And here you are getting close to this guy and really intimate, in a way, with his body and his mind as you're working on him,
Yeah.
And this comes across pretty deeply. As a kid, my mom was pretty tuned into me of what I was as a kid, and she used to pull me out to take me over to the Art Institute and the Field Museum of Natural History, which was really fascinating to me. And I just was a natural with this. I just felt so good seeing these things and seeing all this stuff visual and beauty and angst and anger and everything. It was just fantastic as a kid. And just really tuned me on to draw as a kid. I used to just spend time drawing a lot, very quiet, shy, just by myself and making drawings. And this was during the war years in the early 40s. And I was drawing just things of the war a lot, drawing airplanes and ships exploding and dead soldiers and everything and all this here stuff with the war and everything, Japanese and Germans, and it was filling my mind up quite a bit. But a lot of the things from my ma helped me grow also with this.
Were you a social kid, or did you have a lot of friends, and did you play with a lot of kids, or were you just kind of home drawing?
No, I was just an outsider. I felt more comfortable just being with myself and my imagination and a pencil and paper and crayons. That's where I really felt I belonged.
Now, I know your dad had a traditional job, but he also had something else that he did. And I think this is extremely interesting. Can you tell me, tell people about what your dad did?
Yeah, my dad, he was a machinist inspector at the International Harvester. But on his off time, on his spare time, he loved to play with and delve into magic. And he worked with magic and became a semi-professional magician. In fact, his stage name was Prince Zombie. And he would sometimes show at some of the theaters in the city. At that time in the 40s, early 50s, they had, when they'd have a movie at a movie theater, they would have some type of act in between movies, maybe about a 5-minute act or a 3-minute act of something, like a vaudeville type of thing. And my dad would perform, and I'd go backstage with him and help him set up his little podium or whatever, his little gear. And I'd watch him backstage as he would put on a little 5-minute show. He would practice like every night. He was so diligent in this. I mean, he really worked at this and worked hard at it and perfected it. the idea that he did this on the side by working full time. I mean, having 3 kids, he was a pretty busy guy and tired in his evenings and weekends, but he spent so much time into this to perfect it. And through the years, it made me think that maybe I've been following a little bit in his steps too. When I became a full-time commercial artist for a living, after a while, a couple of years, it didn't satisfy me. I had to express myself in the evenings or weekends by developing something in fine arts, something that I felt was needed and something I had to say that had to get out.
You went into the Navy right after high school. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. And were you drawing and producing artwork up until then?
Not really. I really got out, going into high school, I didn't really draw much. I don't think I did. I can't remember anything like that there. I just started to grow up as a average teenager, trying to live my life, what's going on around me, where am I going and everything, and hanging around with buddies and everything. Although I still had a feeling with art because I did tattoo myself as a kid and tattooed some of my friends. And that was sort of something that I got fascinated by and I wanted to explore more.
Ooh, okay. Well, what age was that you were actually?
Oh, it was probably about 15 years old,
Okay.
maybe about 14,
Right.
maybe about 15 years old. Yeah.
When did you first get exposed to tattoos and where?
I was so much aware of a lot with the veterans coming home from the war and what they wore on their skins. I remember I was sitting riding on a streetcar with my mom, going somewhere, and you'd see somebody sitting there in a T-shirt, and he'd have "Death Before Dishonor" on his arm with a dagger through a Japanese skull, maybe, or remember Pearl Harbor or Death from Iwo Jima, and all these violent things that were reminiscent of where he came from the Pacific or from Germany. And it really told me something. These guys are wearing stories on their body, and you look at them, and their lined faces, or maybe just a young blonde kid or something. But he had his tattoos on. It made my mind just fly to, what did he see? Where did he come from? Why did he get this tattoo? What happened to him? That type of thing.
So you saw it as like a story.
A story.
Like a doorway into a story, as
Exactly.
opposed to just a piece of artwork.
It was like a portal, going into somebody's life in a way, and it just fascinated me, and again, that's where I think I wanted to tattoo myself too. I didn't have any image in mind or anything like that too, but I just had the, as a kid, you always hear about, you get a sewing needle and you wrap a thread around it close to the point and you dip in Indian ink and you just go over like in lines pricking into the skin, dot lines like that, and you make a tattoo, permanent tattoo on somebody, And I did a tattoo on my arm, sort of like a group of guys that we hung around with, a small gang, you might say, And I tattooed that on with a dagger, and I tattooed a couple of the other fellas,
At 15?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What? So do you still have that tattoo?
I had it covered up when I went in the Navy.
All right.
I had it covered up. I wanted it covered up. Once I got in the Navy, I got a tattoo of a eagle on my right arm there that covered it up.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It was an old gang tattoo.
That's fascinating. Okay, so then you went into the Army,
Navy.
the Navy rather. Sorry.
I spent 3 years aboard ship, and after about 2.5 years, I was thinking about, geez, I'm going to be getting out soon. What am I going to do? I never thought of this before, except maybe house painting, which my uncle was stirring me into. And I thought, I don't know if I want to be a house painter, man. I'm painting so much in the Navy, painting great paint all over the ship all the time, I wanted to do something, and I felt something that I think I have something inside of me I wanted to say. And I don't know how to say that, express that, but I thought I'd like to go to art school. So I started to do a little bit more drawing, which I did on and off, just writing letters and using letter paper and drawing pinups of girls and everything, And that's the only drawing I did aboard ship. I used to pass them out to guys,
And were those done from memory?
Yeah,
or?
just from memory, just doodling with a pen and paper, just trying to picture a pinup girl, Betty Grable or somebody, and picture up a sexy outfit or something like that there,
Yeah.
And as time got closer, as I was getting, before I was getting discharged, I thought of writing to the Art Institute of Chicago and applying for something for schooling if I could get out and go to school there. I think I wrote home to my parents. I got an address and I wrote to them, wrote to the Art Institute, and they sent me a form to fill out, and they wanted examples of my drawings. And Jesus, I really didn't have anything except these pinups or whatever, just stupid things, Made a couple of drawings of ships and everything, and I sent them to the Art Institute. Well, I got a letter eventually back, an envelope back from the Art Institute, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was almost to the point of do not apply here, And I was really crestfallen at that point. I didn't know what to do, And so anyway, when I did get out, I decided to, with the help of my brother, he steered me along to applying to a commercial art school. And which I did, American Academy of Art down in the Loop. And I went there, and they accepted me, and I loved it. I went there 2 years full time.
You said something inside of you needed to be expressed, and you applied to the Art Institute. For a male at that time, was there anyone else you knew that was being an artist?
No, I didn't know anybody else who wanted to be an artist, who was an artist. And I just felt that was maybe unique in myself, but that was just my background before of what I what I did when I was growing up, doing drawings and everything, and feeling something about art. I think it's a feeling. It's empathy for something. It's empathy for others, I think, and something different from myself.
You pursued the commercial art. It sounds like that was very interesting for you. Was tattoo still part on your life? Was it still on your radar at all when you started as a commercial artist?
Tattoo was not on my radar at that point. I was still, I was proud of my Navy tattoos, put it that their way. I love to walk around in the summer with a short sleeve shirt on, showing off my Navy tattoos. It showed where I came from, what I was, and I enjoyed that. I just wanted to stay with the artwork and see where I could find a job. Living. I got married, got a job eventually at the Chicago Sun-Times in the city here, and as a graphic designer, I worked there for over 30 years doing artwork, doing a layout and paste up and illustration for ads and things for the newspaper. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. But again, it's the type of thing that even after maybe about a year or so, I felt that it wasn't enough for me. I had to do something on my own, explore something on my off time. And that's where I think I was getting like my dad in a way, going back, beyond a regular everyday job. You got to do something what's inside you, what your core is about, And so I started to work things out in the evening on my spare time and the weekends, and just do things of what I felt. And I started to learn on my own about woodcuts, and did woodcut printing. And I did a couple of illustrations on woodcut, and then did more and more with that there. More of that with that, and also started to feel the old tattoo bug creeping up in me as far as imagery, which I started to explore into my woodcut prints.
And then at some point you got a job at a tattoo shop.
Yeah, right. This was after quite a few years working at the Sun-Times. Again, and working, out of my home doing artwork with the paintings and that, even paintings I was developing with my artwork with tattoos. I was still feeling I wanted to get more and close to tattooing. And I started hanging around Cliff Raven's shop on Belmont there a little bit more and more on my off time. And I felt that I wanted to get closer by learning that tattoo and actually doing it. But I wanted to just get more involved with it, to understand it more, becoming closer, so my paintings of tattooed people and tattooed imagery would become more shining, more glowing, more understandable, more out there, more putting something into it that hopefully people could see more and feel. I started apprenticing at a tattoo shop. I apprenticing under Dale Grande and Buddy McFall, Mac, who was a great old tattoo artist with a fantastic background. And I apprenticed for a while there, and then I left, heard about a job opening on the southwest side of the city at the Chicago Tattoo Emporium. And I applied over there, and things worked out. I worked there in the evenings and weekends for a while, and I got a lot of experience, and it was fantastic. And that's, again, after a while where it just got to me too much, and I think I had to get out of this. So.
What years were those?
I was tattooing at the southwest side, probably around the late 70s.
Now, in the 70s, how would you describe the clientele that were getting tattoos? Was it all men? Was it men and women? Can you just describe?
It was men and women.
What kind of women were getting tattoos in the late 70s?
Well, at that point, in a shop, I was getting a lot of biker gals. So they wanted the Harley Davidson tattoo or a rose, or a flower or a butterfly. That was about it, But did a lot of Harley Davidson tattoos and motorcycle tattoos. And one guy, I did a Harley Davidson tattoo, and I misspelled Davidson. I forgot the S, I think it was. And and I thought later, I didn't spell that right on this guy. And I thought, oh man, this guy's going to come back. What am I going to do, And I talked to Snake, the owner, about that. He says, don't worry about it, And he says, he saw this guy later on. He says, he told me about the tattoo industry. He says, he sort of liked it because it was different.
There you go.
So anyway.
I always wondered what would happen if misspellings happened in tattoos. So apparently they do.
I was lucky there.
Now, I know at some point doing tattoos kind of activated you into fine art. Can you tell me about how things transitioned into, from tattooing to fine art?
Well, again, I don't know how to really say that. Again, I wanted to try to, by starting off with doing some painting, something with tattoo imagery. I just didn't want to do a tattoo. I wanted to do something like with a story in a picture, in paint. So a painting, a valid painting. So I tried to do a story with this, like a person. Who is this person wearing a tattoo that I'm trying to portray here? What is he? Where did he come from? What's his story? What's his background? And I would develop things from there. Maybe create a image of a man or a woman with an interesting hairdo or a shirt or something on, or holding something in their hand, and make up a story about them, and then do a tattoo on them and relate it to their story, and start to show the imagery and try to relate it and try to create an image, a full-blown valid painting out of this here, which I would hopefully call fine art, and people would recognize it as fine art.
Yeah. Do those stories, and when you're working on a particular piece and there's a narrative and a story, is that something that develops while you're doing it, or is it something you think of and then you know that you need to execute that on a surface?
Well, I have an idea where I want to start something and start to execute it, and I have to have a plan, what I'm going to do here. But once I start going with it, it goes on different tangents and surprisingly different tangents too, and it changes. It changes form. The more I'm working on it, the more I'm putting my mind and feeling into it, and it usually comes out of something different than what I had in mind. And surprisingly good, different. Sometimes it comes out bad, different, and that's a damn mistake. Then it has to be thrown out, painted over, whatever. But mostly it comes out in a surprisingly different thing, and it comes down to the feeling I'm trying to deal with and putting into it.
Yeah. You mentioned that sometimes some past art that you had tattooed on someone shows up in your paintings now. What else shows up?
I always say my paintings come from my past and from my experiences, and it's what I'm really feeling. If I'm doing a painting of a person, I am feeling that person, whether it's a memory of a person or persons that I've known or felt or whatever, or dealt with before, or my imagination of this person, or my imagination of what this person is or was or did feel. And I think those start to come out from my mind through my hand into my work.
Do you feel that the artwork that you've been producing is expressing what you want? Do you feel satisfied? Do you feel frustrated with what you're producing? Do you feel like it's actually, I am getting it out there, whatever it is?
Oh, like many artists, I think I'm trying to get my feelings out on a canvas or on a board or whatever, and hopefully that people could read this. And I'm putting everything into it, and my feeling of the person and what I'm trying to get out into it. But I'm not sure if it's coming across or not. Sometimes there's a feeling, there's a connection where all of a sudden you feel like you're in the zone, where everything becomes almost like you're flying, like you're in space, and what's coming out of your hand is just like pure gold, and it's smooth. And yeah, you are getting something. It's what you wanted to say. It's what you wanted to see, and that's a solitary, not a common moment. But every now and then that does appear, and that comes out, and I feel wrung out afterwards, and I feel lucky for having experienced that and putting it down.
George, thank you very much for spending this time with me.
To Rick, thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. My name is Ricky McGuckran, and you have been listening to Eager to Know, the podcast. If you haven't already, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join me next week for another Eager to Know podcast.